Good evening. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Hello.
It's definitely been a while. Welcome to the show. Welcome to It's Not an Orb, It's Dust show. And please, if you're just tuned in, which there's just one little segment just come up then. So if you're tuning in, please subscribe. Please click on subscribe and notifications on the channel. That'd be greatly received. Thank you if you enjoy the content. So, how you been?
Been good. Been all right. Been, getting by. How about you guys?
Not bad. Been getting by again, like you. But exciting things have happened since we've been together. I mean, a lot has happened.
Please tell. Come on.
Well, I mean, aside from the fact that I just celebrated my 36th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
I know, that's pretty cool, right? It's been getting busier, which is kind of interesting too. So a lot of people are starting to come forward and we're getting out there again and doing our things. So it's exciting. How about you, Pete?
Blimey, where do I start? Okay, so we're just coming to the end of our third book. We've just sent it off to the publishers for their proofread. I've just got to finish off a chapter on that. We're trying to push that to get released hopefully by September. Fingers crossed on that. And it's basically about near-death experiences, which kind of close to my heart, obviously. With my cameras and stuff like that, I did kind of reach that point as well. So there's that, and then we're going gung ho probably about November time with our new book, which is it's kind of a 101 methodology on paranormal investigating, and it's kind of my insight to it, and based on my research and stuff like that over the last 20 bit years. So I've got that to look forward to as well.
That's awesome.
What else? We've just locked horns about an event coming up next month, and the lovely Kathy's finally going to grace our presence and join me on that. The paranormal camp we spoke about last time. We finally got confirmation that was going ahead. That got released 3 weeks ago. That went out, and it's taken a bit of a slow turn at the moment to sell tickets, but once it gains momentum, they predict that it's probably going to be a sellout. So it's in Vernon, British Columbia, and it's actually on an old heritage site, one of the oldest sites actually in BC, which is nothing compared to Ontario, but it dates back to the late 18th century originally, and there's a lot of not blood, guts, and that kind of morbid stuff, people get killed and stuff like that, but there's a lot of families living out their lives there and stuff like that. And there has been a lot of reports of activity there as well. So we're basically spending the whole weekend with a select group of people and just going through the motions of paranormal investigating while we're camping. So got that.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome. And then on the other side of that, we got both Jason and myself. We've got a paranormal presentation here in Kamloops. It's mid-August. It's already been booked actually, and it's at the Paramount Theatre in Kamloops. We got basically a couple of people approached us about the opportunity about doing one in there, and they're tipping that it's going to be a sellout. So we're looking at about top capacity of about 400 seats being taken up for that. So it's good in the respect that finally we're going to start getting revenue back to our team as well, rather than you know yourself, Lynda and Cathy, you do a lot for these public places and nothing really comes back to us. But it's really ultimately our opportunity now to get better equipment in regard to like photography equipment and filming and stuff like that. And it will give us better opportunities to get to more interesting sites where you have to pay a premium to get to those sites. So and obviously gives us opportunity for us to travel as well. So we're definitely looking forward to that as well. And we're going to be putting a lot of effort into that, because obviously the more you put in, the more you get out, kind of thing in relation to that. Besides that, we're doing a couple of fundraisers around Halloween for a heritage house up in Vernon again as well. And that'd be pretty much it. So not so much. We're not so much hot on the residentials at the moment, which is kind of cool with me. But I've got a steady motion forward in respect of what we're doing over the next few months. So.
Nice.
There you go. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'm going to go now. I've said my piece. Good night.
Are you doing any residential, Lynda, or are you? Is it?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, within the past 2 weeks, we've gotten a couple of requests, so that's going to be fun. Got to fit those into my schedule, which is kind of crazy at the moment. And again, like Pete, you too, you're starting to book up for October, which is kind of fun. We are too, which is great. I like booking up early, and I'm hoping that I'll have time to breathe this year.
Yeah, it's all about that pacing yourself. And to be honest with you, this obviously we took 5 weeks off of the show as well. The last year really kind of with work and everything that was going on with work and like the paranormal as well, it just really kind of knocked me sideways, and it gave me that kind of sense to take a step back and just schedule things around myself rather than trying to please other people. Yeah. And that's something I have to consider every time I put my hand up and say I'm going to do something. So
yeah, I agree. Actually, I think we need to do that more often, especially in this field. People really do believe that all they need to do is call and we're right here. It's like paranormal 911 or something.
It is, and you don't get much thanks for it either. It's just that you've heard me rant about that before. No matter what you do for people in certain situations, there's just no pleasing some people. So, but that's just a small minority, and I'll stop my bit of talking. Anyway. So this week's guest, John, I believe he must be confused with the time zones because he's not on the show at the moment. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to carry the momentum on from our last show that we had, where we were going through different topics and sharing our experiences in relation to our expertise, as much as people shoot us down. You're not experts in this field. There's no such things as experts. But I'm going to use that word anyway. Feel free to.
You don't have 10 diplomas from Ghost.
I know. Being a paranormal. What are you talking about? They don't say that with an English accent either. They just they hear it in their head.
You don't have the official certificate from.
I know, yeah. I got to my degree in paranormal investigating.
Right.
It's the worrying thing about it, because there was a little phase a few years ago, wasn't there, where there was people actually doing these diplomas, online diplomas for paranormal investigating and stuff like that. Which is, it's fine, like sharing your knowledge with people and stuff like that, but don't give them a certificate at the end of it. Jesus, it's this field's filled enough with like people with fat heads. Well, you don't want to give them any more ammo to make their heads even bigger. Like, I got a diploma.
To be honest, I mean, it's the same. It's the same in my field. I do a lot of readings. Medium readings, psychic readings, tarot readings. And I get a kick out of these people that have like 10 diplomas from, I don't know, tarot class 201 or some crap like that. And I'm just like, okay, like, but the thing is, it all comes down to the experience, right?
Yeah.
It really does. It comes down to the experience. And, when you're doing this field, in any sort of supernatural, paranormal type of way, whether it's readings or ghost hunting or aliens or, Bigfoot. I mean, it really does come down to the experience that you've put in and the knowledge that you have. And this is by doing your own research and getting out into the field, actually doing, nothing probably upsets me more than to see somebody that has tarot class 201 and hanging up as a diploma and then charging people hundreds of dollars, to read from a book because they got a certificate from, crap class tarot. Like, it just, when you've put in so much time or effort or, all of those things, like I've been reading cards since I was 16 years old. I've been doing, readings since I don't know when, you know what I mean? but that, all of that is experience, and it's the same with paranormal. And it, you know, with investigating, like, you don't just buy a camera and run out there. And I mean, we're dealing with real people and real situations, and some things are you shouldn't be messing with, or it's not that you shouldn't be messing with them, but to give people this false hope or the scare, that's not necessary. And we've all dealt with people like that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, I've actually still got the post-it notes from the show like 5 weeks ago on my desk. That's incredible. It's just like
I'm post-it note show.
I know. Because I've got ADHD. I have post-it notes everywhere because of reminders and stuff like that. And like my whole life is organised in Outlook and post-it notes. I'll even walk around work sometimes with that just to remind myself about, I need to go to the washroom or something like that. Breathe, Peter, breathe. Okay.
Love it.
I was wondering why I was starting to feel funny on my knees, but so when last show we had, there were a few subjects we covered, and I believe we covered the most validated case we've been on. That was one, and there was we skipped to the most active, and that drew us out to the end of the show because it was Cathy. Cathy was the last one on that. So I'm going to start the next topic off in relation to experiences outside of ghost hunting. Just any other paranormal experiences, like you guys have ever experiences with Bigfoot, UFOs, and stuff like that. If you guys would like to speak of that, that'd be great. So I'll definitely hand the mic to. I'll start with Lynda first.
Ooh, exciting. Okay, so any other experiences with things other than ghosts and hauntings and stuff like that? Well, I am going to say that when I was a kid, we had our cottage in the Laurentians, which is a little bit north of Montreal, and we always used to see strange lights in the sky. And interestingly enough, I do remember a few times that our bedroom, my sister and I shared a bedroom upstairs at the cottage. And I do remember our bedroom being flooded with light a couple of times, which was really strange because we were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there were no highways, there were no roads that passed by our cottage. So that kind of frightened me a couple of times. And I used to think, well, you know, when you read those UFO books as a kid, they used to talk about rooms being flooded with light, almost like they were looking for you. And that happened, but it's so strange because that happened to me a couple of times in my life. It happened to me in my childhood home in Saint Laurent, which is a suburb of Montreal. And that happened to me again a couple of times where the room was just flooded with light. It was almost as if there was a helicopter or a big truck right in front of my window, and I was on the second floor. So that has happened to me quite a few times in my life. And my sister has what she describes as an irrational fear of aliens. And I remember when she was looking, right? And I remember when she was looking for a house, when she moved to the Ottawa area, and she was looking at this wonderful home, and it was sort of in the middle of this beautiful field, honestly, no neighbors really within eyesight. And she said to me, well, my husband loves this house and I like it too, but I could never live here because of the aliens. I'm terrified. So really, apart from any kind of ghostly experience or anything that I can describe as ghosts and hauntings, that's really the big one for me. I mean, aliens they've always been on my brain. So I don't know, Cathy, you have that irrational fear of aliens too, right?
Mm-hmm. 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 So speaking of, I've always had an irrational, like, I don't know. It's always been that, you know, that fear of mine. And it's funny because kind of a, I don't know if it's a long story or not, but it kind of is, I guess. One day my daughter called me, and she was out partying with a bunch of friends, so they were probably a little bit, drunk or high or whatever. But they were on this hill, and she phoned me the next day and she said, "Mom, you're not going to believe the weirdest thing that we saw." And I was like, what is that? And she goes, "There was this big orange, like, orb kind of thing. There was 3 of them in the sky, and we all saw them, and we were all like, oh my God." And then she said it just hovered, and then all of a sudden they took off. But they went in, like, all 3 of them together, and they all took off at the same time. It wasn't like one after the next. It was like 3 of them, and then boom, gone. And she goes, "We all saw it. It was the weirdest thing. Don't know how to explain it." So I kind of just brushed it off as like, oh okay. You guys are all probably, on loopy or whatever. But a week later, I'm sitting out on my front step. It was a beautiful night. And I remember I was just sitting out there, and, it's so quiet around here at times, even though we're in the city, my neighborhood itself is so nice and quiet. So I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting on the front step, and all of a sudden I look up, and right, like, at the end of the sidewalk, so a normal city sidewalk, from the door to the sidewalk kind of thing, above the street light, I don't know exactly how far above the street light, but it's far enough, like probably another 10 feet above the street light, there is this big freaking orange orb. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what it was like. I'm holding this, like, you can see it was like this bright, like it was so bright. It was right there. And I don't remember walking. Yeah. I don't remember walking from the sidewalk from the stairs to the sidewalk. I don't remember. Like, I just remember the next thing I know, I was sort of looking up at this big freaking orange, like a beach ball, bigger than a beach ball kind of, thing. But I remember seeing these, it was almost like it was cut in half. So it was orange and bright, but it was almost like there was LED, like, lights on the inside. I don't know how to explain it. It was like cut in half. I don't know. Like, it was the weirdest thing. And I'm standing there in the streets, perfectly quiet. And I remember looking at this thing, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm the only one looking at this. And I start screaming. I'm like, get out here. And I'm calling my kids, and I'm yelling at them to come running out. And all of a sudden, all 3 of them came running out. And then my neighbor came running out, and they all stopped. Like, they all saw it, and they just went, holy shit. Like, all 3 of them just stopped in their tracks. And then we all kind of stood there for maybe like a couple of seconds. Like, this was not a long time. And all of a sudden it just went boom, and it flew. And I'm talking, it went across the city so fast, but it was so bright that you could see it on the outskirts of the city. Like, it was still flying. And that was the weirdest experience I've ever had. And then, of course, you're getting all of these opinions like, well, it's St. Elmo's fire, it's a meteor. And I'm like, I don't know of any fucking meteors that hover. Like, sorry, but I've never heard of that. I don't really know or understand what St. Elmo's fire is. But, you get all of these, oh, it's a weather this, it's a weather, it's a blah, 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 blah. But I was like, I don't know. This thing, I mean, for the amount of time, because like I said, I don't know. I don't remember walking. I'm not saying it abducted me. I'm not saying that at all. But I don't remember walking from one end to the next. Like, I don't remember walking to go look at it. I was just suddenly there. So I probably at some point I was just like kind of tranced out and looked at it. But I messaged my daughter right away, my oldest daughter, because she wasn't there. And I was like, okay, that thing that you saw, did it look like this? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, oh my God, we literally just saw it. Like, it came out and we saw it. And it was wild. That was probably I would have to say it was probably one of the freakiest experiences besides paranormal stuff, besides dealing with ghosts and, the goblins and all of that crap. You know what I mean? But that right there, I mean, it just sticks in your mind, and you can't. And I've looked it up. I've gone on YouTube and I've looked it up, and there's like videos of other people seeing these things.
It's it's a lot of there's a lot of common theme in relation to sightings of UFOs. It's not that flying saucer that you see on TV.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. There's the specialists we've had on the show as well. Not specialists, sorry, I'll keep going about experts, but the UFOologists or the UFO guys out there, a lot of them have come forward, and there's a lot of parallels there between what we do as investigators as well, and orbs and stuff as well. So maybe there's a connection there. As much as they hate, when you're in your own field, whether you're a ghost hunter or a UFO or you're hunting for Bigfoot, when all of a sudden when you say there's a connection, they're like, no, there's no connection in ghosts and whatsoever. It's Bigfoot. But it's funny, and I grew up right by the side of a countryside, and right at the back of me, I grew up in the Surrey-Kent county borderline, and right at the back of where I used to live, there was a place called Biggin Hill, which was at the top of a valley, a huge valley, and it was right at the top of the valley was Biggin Hill Airport. And Biggin Hill, if you ever do research in the area and all that, it had a lot of history to it with like during the Second World War, and it was the main stopping area for the Canadian pilots when they used to come over, and they helped support the British during the campaigns around Europe, and they had Americans there as well. So there's the utmost history there, and it wasn't a main airport, but it was used for emergencies and stuff like that in the area for when patients need to go to hospital and stuff like that, and when rich people landed around that area as well. But when we were kids, there was up-to-an amount of stories about this. You could see UFOs at the top of Biggin Hill and stuff like that. And where we drove, where you looked over from Croydon, where I grew up, you could see like the back end of Biggin Hill. So you always had that spectrum of that area.
Right.
And when we were kids, we used to obviously our playground was the countryside, and we used to go around Biggin Hill. We used to play in the valley and stuff like that. We'd see all sort of kind of lights around and stuff like that, and you go home, you talk to my dad, and of course my dad was that old school kind of person. Oh no, it must be, they're doing this with helicopters and stuff like that. And the media in the UK is a lot more transparent in relation to things going on around airports as well, which is slightly different. I don't know too much about Canada, but in America, it's kind of, it's all hush-hush, like Area 51 and places like that when they're doing, when the Air Force are doing like test flights and stuff like that. But in the UK, they're very much transparent. But there's one time I was about 16 years old, and a friend of mine just got his driving license, and we were actually driving down the valley going towards Biggin Hill, because there was a pub there. We were going to meet my friends there and stuff like that. So we got to the bottom part of the valley, and where it basically started grading upwards is where typically we used to put our foot down, because you get that kind of rush feeling when you're going up. We just did it as kids and stuff like that, and it was a really weird feeling because you feel yourself like on a roller coaster being pulled up as fast as you go. So a friend of mine started doing that, and as we're going up, there was all like tree lines all right by the side of me, but there was this white like round light by the side of me, and I just, in the back of my head, I just thought it was a street lamp, but it followed us all the way up to the top of Biggin Hill, and obviously it was pitch black, and you could see it was behind the trees, but there was no you can get the parameter of how far away it was, but to me it seemed like it was very close, and it looked like probably about 2 to 3 meters wide in relation to where I believed it was, in relation to where I was in the car. Anyway, I was talking to a friend Ian, and I said, "Oh, that light and stuff like that," and he was like, "Holy shit!" And we were talking about, it could be like, it could be a car behind the bush, behind the trees and stuff like that. So no, there's no, it's just woodland and stuff like that. So we thought it's kind of weird. Anyway, we got to the top of Biggin Hill, and then at the top, you can either turn left or right because you had the airport right in front of you. So we turned right, and we're heading off into that direction, and Ian just suddenly screeched his car like that. We turned around, and this light was following us, and bearing in mind, Biggin Hill was pitch black, like no street lamps on or anything like that. And this light was coming towards us, and it stopped, and it just stood there like that, and we were like, fuck. So I got out of the car, and Ian got out of the car as well, and we turned around and looked, and it just bang disappeared, and it was just totally disappeared. And then we went, oh, okay. And then I looked up, and you could see this light just disappear up in the air. Like we couldn't even see it move. It obviously shot upwards, but we didn't see it. It just disappeared just like that. But the interesting thing about it was was the we couldn't hear. Like it plugged our ears because of the like there was no sound or anything like that. But it was almost as if, when you're on when you're landing on a plane and stuff like that, you get that plugness at the back of your ears and your ears plugged up. That's what it felt like. And we both felt exactly the same thing as well. And what was like, so we were like, holy crap, we were so. What was funny, about 4 or 5 days later, because I went home that night and of course I'm half drunk and I'm talking to my mum and dad and I'm like, no, this happened and stuff like that. My mum was totally believing what I was saying. My dad's like totally dismissing it, but it was in the newspaper. It was in the local newspaper that apparently there were multiple sightings of the same thing, but at different parts of Biggin Hill that night.
Wow.
That was before, obviously, there was a notation about drones and stuff like that, and it definitely wasn't a drone or anything like that. It was just a white ball, like coming towards us, and it just stopped. But you couldn't tell because Biggin Hill was totally black. Like you couldn't see anything up there, and you couldn't see how far it was away, and that was the thing as well. But yeah, that was mine. So.
Isn't it weird though, hey? Like all of the experiences that were different are like kind of alien sort of related, Like you gotta.
Well, yeah. Again, is it like it was a question that kind of sticks in the back of my mind. Going back to what I said earlier on, there's a lot of familiarities in relation to what we do as ghost hunters and what we see as these orbs as well. Because effectively, the name of the show and stuff like that, orbs, and generally that notion comes from what you see on cameras and stuff like that, because 99.9% of the time it is dust, and but when I've seen orbs myself, like on various investigations, are the same quality as that, and it's just that, well, is that a UFO or is that kind of more to do with what we're searching for, that kind of threshold? But we don't know, and again, it could be an energy, it could be a little alien in there.
That's right.
So
we don't know.
Yeah. I remember the one guest that we had on, he was saying that I guess over the past couple of years, there's been less of the UFO incidents. Like I remember him saying that, like there hasn't been as many of the UFO incidents where they've changed. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'd have to go back and watch the show, but I remember him saying something about that it's sort of changed a little bit, like over the last 5 or 6 years. Like there's been less reportings, or they've been different reportings. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I remember that too, Kathy.
Yeah,
I
Charles.
can't remember who was.
It was Charles, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so, because he was very descriptive about his personal experiences as well. And,
yeah.
It was a notation on the fact that the actual reports of UFOs now diminished quite considerably, even during COVID and stuff like that. So,
which is weird because everybody's in their house and looking up and having nothing else to do but hang around outside and stare at the sky, really.
Well, you never know. I mean, now they're walking amongst us, guys.
Well, there you go, right?
That's true. There is that as well. You just don't. I swear that I must have encountered one with one of my ex-girlfriends at some point, but that's a different story. But there is that, and it could be any reason why it diminished as well. Like, who knows? So we just speculate in everything we do in this field, like all round. Like, this is a theory-based field. There's no, we can't quantify anything that we do. We just keep plugging along.
Mm-hmm.
True.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, good. So next one, the most scariest investigation you've been on.
Okay.
And by that I mean, kind of, you can put your brave coat on and say, I've never been scared during an investigation. I've been investigating 150 years. I've never been scared once during my time. Linda's heard all this before, and so has Cathy. But I've never been scared once. And then as soon as like the door just shuts behind them, they're like, oh. But I'm gonna hand the baton again to Lynda, and that's scariest or the most daunting investigation. How's that? The most.
That's a good one. Daunting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the entire family that was sleeping in the living room, because things were happening in their little townhouse, and they were afraid to go to the bathroom alone. They were afraid to sleep alone. They were afraid to cook alone. They were afraid to do all of that alone. And that was a really daunting one, I think, too, because things really happened at that particular investigation. One of those little, what do we call those things? Oh my gosh, inukshuks got thrown at me when I went into the bedroom to switch over the tape recorder. Remember when we had to do that when it finished?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. You need a clicking noise. And you're like, oh, I've got to go and change it. Yeah.
Right. So this little inukshuk that was on this child's desk, it was a souvenir from God knows where, but it was really strange because I'd gone in with, of course, someone else, because you don't do that alone. And this thing just took off from the desk and flew at me. And that was a little daunting. And then we were all sitting in the living room and we heard a noise and wandered into the kitchen, and all the cupboard doors were open. So that was a little strange too. That was a bit scary. And that was the investigation where the dad used to clean up crime scenes and murder scenes and things like that. He worked for an organization or a company that used to do the cleanup, the mop-up jobs, and something had followed him home from one of the jobs, and that's why all of this stuff was happening. But it was a very busy and really scary investigation because you really didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, I was afraid. I had to pee at one point, and I remember thinking, well, I don't really want to bring somebody in with me, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, okay, you can come in with me. Just turn your back. It was a bit daunting. Yeah, it was really scary. But when we finally pieced together all the information, it was quite fascinating. And that was a real great indication that things can certainly follow people home. So that was a scary one. How about you?
Kathy, do you want to go
No,
next?
you go first. You go.
My brain's gone mush. There's by scary. There's only been. I wouldn't say I've ever been scared to the point where I've run out of a building or anything like that. But I've had a few that have had an emotional impact on me to the point where I've just taken back, where it's just totally derailed me. A lot of them come to like children, where I get even before I had kids and stuff like that. I get very sensitive around those type of investigations, and there's been a couple of times over the years where you've had that intelligent contact response back, where there's been no question whatsoever. It's that person or that child, and they're in distress, and that's happened to me twice. And the last time, the very first time was one of the residential cases I did in England before I emigrated, before I moved to Australia. And we actually got a child crying on the tape recorder saying, I want my mummy. Oh. And that really kind of twisted me. And then there was another one as well. And I won't go into too much detail because it's very much a hot topic at the moment. But we were asked. There's a site here in BC, a residential school, and we were asked by the Indian band to go in there and document events that went on in there. There was one particular investigation where we were in there, and there were two investigators talking to each other, like I'm talking to you. And in the background, there was just all of a sudden, and it was a screech that was so freaking loud that I'm surprised that no one heard it. Like this agonizing scream of a child. And I heard that, and I stepped away from investigating for probably about 2-3 months after that. And that was even before I had kids. it just brings it to home. Like sometimes you try so hard to look through that window, and then sometimes you get things like that come through, and it's like, most people with these ghost hunt thrill seekers and stuff like that, their lamp or stuff like that are up, but when you hear things like that, it really kind of it gets to you, and it is scary. Like it does scare the crap out of me, because having sensed that of both those investigations and a couple others with that intelligent response coming back, like those kids are in distress, and it's just like there isn't, you try and say I can bring them to the light and stuff like that, you can't, and it's just it's difficult. That's probably that, and then there was a couple of other investigations over the years where there hasn't been one incident that happened, but I've walked into certain areas, and there's a hotel that was in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver that used to be owned by the Hells Angels many moons ago, and the basement was notoriously active, and the people from the bar come downstairs, they run downstairs and run back upstairs again, stuff like that. And then there was a room in the hotel where it was alleged to be haunted. And this particular night, our team was upstairs in the hotel, and we set up downstairs, and all my equipment was left in the basement area. And I walked downstairs. I walked down there alone. I didn't think anything of it or anything like that. I was literally, I opened the fire exit door to go in through the doorway into the mechanical room where the basement area was. I physically couldn't step foot in there. I opened the door up, and the doorway was blacker than black. Like it was just like that. I could see nothing through it whatsoever. I put my foot to go in there, and my arm wouldn't let me through the door, and it was just I couldn't physically step foot in there. Then I was like conducting myself and turned around and went back upstairs again. Then I came back down with someone else and got through the doorway. The doorway was open. You could see through there. It was still dark, but you could see all the mechanical equipment and stuff like that. I couldn't see anything through there. And that, to me, it was just, it wasn't scary. I was just I couldn't step foot into that room because for whatever reason, I don't know. So just those little things, and it's not, you expect, that kind of thing. The most scary is where you've got a blood curdling story that kind of edged into a horror movie and stuff like that. It's not. It's those little small things that make it more unique and more apprehensive and scary, I guess, to that point. And it's interesting.
Definitely. I think you've heard this story a few times, Peter. I think the one that still kind of gets to you, and it wasn't while it was happening, it was the afterwards, when you go home and you think, oh my gosh, this could have happened, that it's that kind of energy. And then you start really thinking about it. And it was when we did it was in Acreage, and we, the person that I was with, her and I were driving out there. We ended up going late, a little bit late. We were a little bit behind. Everybody was already at the house. And they had told us that before we had got there, and this is like, now we're talking like it was a fresh snowfall. So there's no way of, if somebody was walking around, you would see the footprints. It wasn't like the mailman or anything like that. Like, you're going to know. But I guess they were sitting there in the living room waiting for us to show up. And we actually had run of the house, which was kind of nice. The people were out of town, and they had given us the keys and said, here, just go at it. And we thought it was the perfect investigation to, kind of just try different things, because you don't have the homeowners there. And so there's always those, techniques that you want to kind of try or test out. And, and we thought this is the perfect location to do that. And I guess before we got there, they actually were sitting in the living room, and they heard on the front door, bang, bang, bang. And they thought, oh, okay, Kathy and Tiffany are here. They went and looked outside. No footprints, no car, nothing. So that was even before we got there. And then throughout the investigation, it was kind of interesting, because I was sitting in the living room with one of the other investigators, Darian, and her and I, you actually know Darian, Peter.
Yeah, she's kind of unofficially part of my team.
Yeah. And her and I were sitting in the living room, and we were asking questions. And so the way the house is, it's like a bi-level. Okay. So the living room, is quite a few feet off the ground. Like there was no, balcony or patio or anything like that. So the living room window itself was probably a good 10 feet off of the ground. And her and I were sitting there in the living room and doing this, just asking questions. And all of a sudden on the outside wall, bang, 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 enough for everybody to come running in. And I mean, it was at one point there, and you can actually hear us on the audio. Like I think I screamed and jumped about 10 feet, and she did the same thing. It was quite funny. But so we had different experiences like that throughout the thing. But at one point I was getting, like, we had been in actually Calgary the night before. We went and saw somebody from the old paranormal state team or whatever. It was one of those things that we just went to. We were out late the night before, and so we're sitting on the couch, and I'm just exhausted. I could feel like I'm getting tired here, like it's time to go home almost. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna go. I feel like I want to do something, and I kept hearing in my head, go to the basement, go to the basement, go to the basement, and I kept hearing this in my head. Nobody was down there. Everybody was sort of all over the rest of the house doing different things in different rooms. And so I gathered up my stuff and I thought, I'm going to go to the basement. Here I go. I'm going to go to the basement. And one of the other investigators, he says, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the basement. And he's like, by yourself? And I was like, yeah, I just feel like I need to go down there. And he's like, not by yourself. You're not. So came down with me. We're doing an investigation. We're sitting in it. It's an open basement. So you can see like there was like one bedroom on the side when you come down the stairs, and there was another bedroom way at the far end, of the basement, but the rest of it was fully open. And so we're sitting there, we're doing, we're just asking normal questions, whatever. And the lights went on, we could see people coming down the stairs, and the lights went on. And so we're thinking that they can see us. We can see them. They can't see us though, we would have been like, we're right there. They would have been able to see us. We can hear them talking, and then they go back up the stairs, and we're like, okay, I guess whatever. Like, we're just going to carry on doing what we're doing. We went into the side bedroom, and I remember I was sitting on the bed. He was on the floor, and all of a sudden the bedroom door flew open, and then it closed. And we were like, the fuck? And I said, did you catch that on camera? He's like, literally our tape ran out. Like
yeah. Now we know what you're saying.
It always happens that way. So we decide, okay, we're going to go back upstairs. We're going to go grab a tape. We'll go back down because maybe this will happen again. Maybe we'll get somebody else to join us and, have that, we get upstairs and everybody is pissed at us. We're like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And they couldn't find us. So apparently we had just disappeared. And we were like, what are you talking about? We were sitting right in the basement. Like, when you guys came down the stairs, we were right in front of you. We figured that you saw us, so we didn't say anything because they said no, they couldn't. They actually did not see a thing. And the door opening, here's the weird part. So the door opening to the bedroom was actually one of the other investigators. She walked in. She actually stood in the room and looked around and didn't see either of us and closed the door.
That's weird.
It was just like, I mean, we have all of the tape up until then, you know what I mean? Which was good that we could verify, with them, like show them like, this is bizarre. The only thing we didn't catch was that door actually flying open, which was unfortunate because that's when the tape ran out. But so we thought about it later, and, I mean, for somebody, it was almost like one of the claims that the owners had was that their son couldn't hear them down in, that was his bedroom. That was the son. And that they couldn't hear him. And that sometimes it almost seemed like almost like a time lapse. Like she said that the mother had said that she had, talked about, she would call him over and over and over, and he would not have heard a thing. They go into his room and he's not there. But then a second later, he's appearing. So that was actually one of the claims that these people had. And I thought, and the weird thing was, though, is what really affected me was when I got home, and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, like I had this desire to go down there on my own. And I kept, it was like an urge, like I had to do it, and it was like nothing was going to stop me from going. It was like I kept hearing in my head, come to the basement, go to the basement, come to the basement, go to the basement. And I was like, so what if I had, like, that, because at least, with that other person there, you have that kind of that security of some sort. But, like it, and that's where it really hit me. And that's where I kind of went, oh my God. And I remember I was telling my daughter, and my daughter actually started crying because I was telling her about it. And she's never been affected by any of our and she goes, Mom, please don't ever go back to that house. Please don't ever go back to that house. And she goes, I just have a really bad feeling about it. And she's like, after all of the investigations, and everything like that, she's never, really said a word. It was more like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. This was the only time it actually affected her. And I remember being affected afterwards too, like where I was at that, oh crap, what if I had, and that was that. Yeah. So kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That story always blows me away every time we say it. I know I've heard it a few times from you, Cathy. It's just I guess the next question, if I was to define it, would be investigation where it's at the most unlikely outcome, I guess. That's the best way to describe it. And I'll start and then kind of bring you in tune of what I mean. When I was part of Vancouver Paranormal Society, we were called out to a residential case probably about 10 years ago. Actually, it was in Vancouver, actually, which is weird because we never get anything in Vancouver. So the story was there was this lady and she lived alone in this basement suite, and her claims were that items of her clothing were being ripped to pieces, and she was getting pieces of excrement dotted all over her house and stuff like that. And of course, she's preaching demon and stuff like that. And it kind of, at that time, normally with things like that, you're a little bit standoffish, but because it was a friend of a friend, and there was a lot, a kind of a recommendation in relation to her sanity as well, that this woman was legit in relation to what these encounters were. And there were witnesses that actually said that when they dropped her home at various times, they've gone into a place knowing that before it was fine. They found different items and items being cut up and stuff like that. So we probably investigated there probably about 2 to 3 times and got nothing. Like all we got was noises coming from the guys up living upstairs and stuff like that. And it was kind of just hitting a brick wall as such. And it was one of the long weekends here. So we thought for giggles that we'd set up some of the trap cams. I've got some of these hunter cams and stuff like that. So we planted them in different parts of the house. And kind of foolish me, I put one actually in the front room where she was, where she occupied, and the spare room as well, where she hung all her clothes. And there was one in the kitchen area. So of course I went around and got the trap cam, and I got 50,000 pictures of her sitting there watching TV, eating a dinner and stuff like that. So that was a total dumb idea. The second camera got her just walking around, the one in the hallway, just walking around in the kitchen area, nothing to a good degree. What's interesting about the one in the spare bedroom was that we actually captured a gentleman coming into the bedroom and taking items of her clothing out of the wardrobe. And you couldn't see exactly what he was doing or anything like that, but this woman lived alone. And so this was, one of my investigators was the one that went through all the pictures and phoned me up and sent me, emailed me the pictures. So I went through it and I was like, okay, let's make a point of going there next weekend. So I phoned her up and I said that we've got something. And she's all like, oh, great, you've got something paranormal. I'm not going mad or anything like that. So we went around there and got the laptop out, went through the pictures, and she looked one look at the picture, and it was her ex-boyfriend. He still had gave the key back to the house, but he went out and got a key cut, and what he was doing, he was basically terrorizing her life. He was the one that was cutting up her clothing. He was putting bits of excrement everywhere, all over her house and stuff like that. And needless to say, what else was he doing? So she got in contact with the police, and we kind of left it there, walked away. But yeah, it was weird. It was a weird case, that's for sure.
That poor woman. Can you imagine?
No, she was like, honestly, that on a mental scale, like she was just losing her mind, because she was probably in her late 70s, early 80s, and she had a full bag of marbles in relation to her mind, like totally normal. She'd go out and she'd walk everywhere and get the bus into town and stuff like that. Very active woman, stuff like that. But she was just losing her mind, and it really got to her as well, like, until we got there. And it's not us walking in there with a cape and stuff like that. It was only because we, at that time, it was like, oh, why don't we just put those trap cams up and see what we capture?
And here's her ex-boyfriend pulling an Amber Heard on her with the crap all over the place.
Yeah. So it's so there you go. It was definitely interesting for sure, and it was for her. That reward was that she knew, first of all, she wasn't going mad. Yeah. Secondly, the fact that a-hole was doing what he was doing. So.
Wow. We I wouldn't say it was I wouldn't say that it was it wasn't like that, that's for sure. But we had a case where it was a young couple, and the wife was pregnant, and they had a small, like, kind of not quite a studio apartment, but close enough. And the husband was kind of, let's just be honest, he's kind of a creeper, kind of like one of those that tried texting you, randomly, that kind of stuff. And I was just like, whatever, like, I was pretty much at that point where I was like gonna just pass it off to just say, okay, you have to contact one of the male investigators. Like, we were getting to that point, right? Because
Cathryn, I do that to you all the time. You don't pine me off, do you?
What's that? No.
It takes you all the time.
No, you don't. But we would go over there, and he was trying to be all flirty and stuff. But it was funny because we've never used the Oculus before, and that's the one where it just says random words, right? And the investigator that I had gone over there with, he had one of those. It was brand new. We were just trying it out. We thought, okay, what the heck? And it was funny because the Oculus was like flirt, would come up, flirt, affair, bad man. It was like really bizarre stuff like this. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this thing, But anyway, so we set up the camera, and we said, okay, we're going to set this up and leave it, throughout the night kind of thing, and we'll just do that, because their complaints were that most of it happened at night, where they would hear noises or the covers being pulled off of them, or, they would hear, sounds or talking within the apartment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought, okay, we'll leave a couple of cameras up and do that. So we went the next day, picked them up, and, a few days later, we're watching the cameras. And I don't think this guy realized that we don't sit there and watch them usually all by ourselves, because there he is, gets out of bed, buck naked, and decides that he's going to do a dance in front of the fucking camera. And he's just strutting his stuff. and so I put him on speed dial, or I put him on speaker.
Yeah, I bet you did after that. Did you die?
Everybody's sitting there, and I said, so we're watching your tape. I got the team here, and we're all watching your tape. Just so you know, you're on speaker. We're not going to be doing any more investigation at your place after this. And you could tell he was just embarrassed as all heck. He was just like, oh my god, like, because you know that he probably thought I was going to be sitting there watching it by myself, and he thought he'd put on some kind of, strip performance or whatever. But yeah, that was the end of that. Never heard from him again. But I felt so bad for the wife, because there she was, like 8.5 months pregnant, and I thought, oh, you poor lady, like.
Oh boy.
But yeah, that was definitely an unexpected outcome with that one. It was funny.
I can safely say that I've never had anything like that ever happen. The only weird thing was this one lady who contacted us to say that she kept hearing her name being called, and she lived alone, and there was no way that this could be happening. Had to be a ghost, and sometimes it was just very harsh. And she said, "Oh, that's it. It has to be a demon. I have a demon in my house, of course." So when we went just to do a walkthrough, she actually had a new neighbor who had who had one of those, oh my gosh, one of those old systems. Remember, everybody used to have like an intercom in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we've got one here still. Yeah.
Right. And it used to randomly work, and every once in a while it would go off. And it happened that this new neighbor, her name was, I'll say Carol, and it was the same name. So every once in a while she was hearing her name, but it was the neighbor's intercom system, which I thought was really funny. So it was not a demon.
Not a demon, yeah.
Yeah, it was the intercom demon. That was weird. Oh wow.
The electronic.
Sorry, Cathy. Go on.
Oh no, I just said the electronic demon.
Yeah. Yeah, we got one of those intercom systems because we bought our house last April, and it's still. I actually disconnected it now, but it would randomly come on, and I lived here in this house for about 3 months before, like my family moved down from up north, and you get up some mornings and you can hear, and that's all you can hear in the room. It's like, you're like, am I going mad? Like, have I lost my hearing and stuff like that? Because all you can hear is that, like, or it comes on in the kitchen when you're having breakfast. It's like, hello, voices from the bed. But yeah, it's got like a mind of its own. But
yeah.
Too funny.
Too funny. Okay, well, we're almost out of time, but it's been good, guys. It's been
it's been good to be back. And guys, make sure that you if you're interested in the event, maybe tell them about that again, Peter, and that people can look it up.
Yep, we are doing a paranormal camping weekend in the beautiful Vernon, BC, Canada. It's going to be June 17th to 19th, I think, if memory serves me correctly. So it's going to be there Friday to Sunday. You get full access to 8 allegedly active buildings. You get a paranormal tutorial 101 with both myself and my team, and you get to camp and talk ghostly stories all weekend. So what more do you want in life? Lynda, get over here now. Come on, get away.
I wish I could do that. Darn.
I know.
That's okay.
So yeah, we've got that looking forward to as well. So if you guys tuning in, please, the venue is at the O'Keefe Ranch in Vernon. I'll probably plug the link up here on next week's show. And there's still some tickets available, and they're going to be selling like hot potato soup.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun.
I'll be with you in spirit.
What's that?
I will be with you in spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, and we'll be back next week for another show with hopefully with a new guest. It's like, do I smell? No. Oh dear. Anyway, have a great week, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks.